Valdez, what's your weakest signal?
I guess I'll call it Crip Tech. And I've focused on one person in particular, Sandie Yi, who creates clothing for her own particular body and her own experiences. So she only has 2 fingers and 2 toes. It's like she makes clothing that's like not about covering up those differences, but about almost emphasizing them in a certain way. So she's made like a shoe that has like her 2 toes are like very prominent, and there's like a horn that's sticking out in the middle where like the rest of your toes would normally be. She's also made like clothing out of like people's skin graft casts. I think the thing that's interesting is like the way, not that we see people with disabilities, but the way they see us, where what we assume is like normal in our environment and what goes into like creating those norms. I think an awareness of that is what I see being the signal, kind of like literacy around like the environment and just stuff around us.
The clothing made from skin? Was that what I...
Yeah, it was like casts of skin grafts of people who I think had parts of their skin taken to be placed in other parts or whatever, and cast those into some kind of, I don't know, resin or whatever. So it looks like the skin graft that was taken itself. And then she like repeats it and makes like a dress out of it or something like that, or like a shirt or whatever.
And it's like everyday wear.
It's like a statement if it's for everyday wear, for sure. I don't think it's meant to be mass produced because it is very personal, right? So it's very like, she's interested in the assumptions that go into making like a mass product for everyone, as opposed to like the particularities of every body, you know?
I like that as a reversal of like assumptions and just like an awareness, I guess. It's sort of like a signal of a certain type of awakening and like lens switching and perspective enhancing.
But what do you think the stakes are in terms of increasing literacy around Crip movement, if you can call it a movement? Is it to make design more inclusive? Like in this particular case, what do you think her intentions are?
Well, I feel like there's like 2 things you just asked. Like on the one hand, it's like, what are her particular intentions? And then on the other hand, like, what are the stakes of this thing, like broader speaking and like broadly speaking? I was thinking about it earlier and I'm like, I don't think it's about universal design or like inclusive tech, which has been like a driver of innovation in that space for like ever, you know, like big ones are like Siri, you know, which started as like a hearing impaired interface for computing in the 80s or 90s. But so I don't think it's necessarily about like inclusive tech as much as it is about like almost just like a critical moment. Like, I'm not sure. I don't know what it leads to, you know, like, I don't know if, I was reflecting too on the notion of signals, and a signal is very like, it's like a radar system is always like about a threat of something that's coming or whatever. And I was like, this isn't like necessarily that kind of a signal, you know, like I'm actually not sure what it is, but at the same time, it signals some change, you know?
There's you could call it a tangential signal here or something that's just like about the ways things can be worn. And I mean, I always find it kind of curious and interesting that so much of clothing has just been so well established for so long, and it's just sort of done a certain way. It seems to work. Things hang on your body a certain way, but there's like other opportunities that we don't even see or think about. And I don't know. I mean, one thing that comes to mind is just like glasses, for example. It's just like this particular way it sits on your face. It stays there. It's also ability related, sort of ability enhancing or restoring technology. And I don't know, there's other ways that you can sort of like drape, hang, hook things to your body for everyday use and fashion and so on. And this kind of like tweaks the thinking, changes assumptions, changes expectations about that by personalizing it. But that's something that maybe can be applied differently to mass fashion as well. Like the jewelry that Erykah Badu wears on a regular basis, like these like face pieces and things like that are rare in contemporary culture. And as an example, I think jewelry is one place where maybe you see a little more creativity and stuff. Okay, signal and noise with it.
Is this a signal that we shouldn't be pathologizing or medicalizing body conditions or like different ways a body is? And maybe it's a signal for that. And I'd say it's like a weak signal of something else, but I'm not quite sure what the something else is, which is like somewhere between like extending the boundary of the body into like clothing or something like that.
Okay. Macy, signal or noise?
I don't know if it's either, but I think it's more just, I think it's around the awareness piece, and it's almost like it should be a principle.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I buy that.
Yeah.
why that can't necessarily be considered like a signal as it's like it would expect as far as like the trajectory of things. I guess. Okay. Asia.
I'd say it would be a signal for me, depending on where that information was published. Depending on what news outlet is like putting this out there and informing people about this is what I think a signal for that would actually be. Because a lot of news outlets that I listen to and like take in are covering disability news, or at least that's on the radar. Like Afropunk, they're always posting body positivity as like Instagram page. And so I get a lot of that, a lot of different people doing a lot of amazing things around asserting their will to live free of our judgment, you know, and I feel like that's a really important thing that I hope is not just in my bubble, you know?
So it might be a signal if the signal is about like mainstreaming this kind of awareness. That makes sense to me. Fathers, did you find this in the Wall Street Journal or where was it?
Almost, yeah. Definitely the same readership. It was in Art in America.
Art in America. Yeah.
So both speculative financial vehicles.
Right. Very good. Okay. I generally agree on this one that the signal really depends on context and how we frame it, what we're signaling. But I'll go with signal just because of where it took my own thoughts creatively and stuff.
I was so close to winning the weakest award, the one that we talked about last week, where like nobody would say it was a signal.
I know. The weakest signal award is key.